Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Matt and welcome back to another Minecraft tutorial. This video is going to be a tutorial for a villager breeder and zombie converting trading hall, but before I start I want to very quickly say that if you end up liking the video and you're not already subscribed, please consider subscribing as it really helps me out to grow the channel. It's free and it only takes a second to click that button. Right, enough that shameless self-promotion, onto the actual video. So a couple of weeks ago I got a request to do a tutorial for a villager breeder running into zombie converter system. So what you end up with when you build that is a system that looks a little bit like this. We have our breeder over here. You might recognize Impulsesv's design. That is my preferred design for villager breeders. That comes over here, running into our little holding cell, goes straight into this room here for job selection and sends the villagers over here into our little trading hall. And we have a zombie down there to zombify them, and we can convert them back into villagers and do that as many times as we want so we can get some nice cheap trades out of these guys. Now, it's really important to note before we go anywhere with the tutorial, that's what's about to happen to this poor guy down here is, there you go, he's turned into a zombie villager. You're only guaranteed to get that on hard mode. If you're on normal mode, there is only a 50% chance of a villager turning into a zombie villager if they're killed by a zombie, and on easy mode, it just doesn't happen at all. So, it's really only worth building this kind of system with a zombie converter in your trading hall if you are doing this on hard mode. As always, we're going to start by looking at what you actually need to build this thing. First of all, we will look at the villager breeder. Now, obviously, if you're building this on the ground, you're not going to need this dirt here. The dirt will already be there, and you can just surround it with the boundaries of the farm. But I do recommend building this a little bit raised up in the air, purely because the baby villagers are going to be dropping out of the bottom of this thing. So if you build it a little bit raised up, then that means that you can build everything else on the level ground and you don't have to worry about digging pits down for that. So I just think it makes it a little bit easier. If you are going to be building it a little bit raised up like that, you're going to need a total of 236 dirt blocks for that farm area. You're going to need at least 9 of some kind of light block. I use glowstone, but you could also use, say, sea lanterns, for example, to light up that farm. You need 8 of some kind of stairs. You're going to need a handful of solid blocks to surround this with. You need a minimum of 44 glass blocks. You need 13 of some kind of trapdoor. Now the crop you use for this is either going to be potatoes or carrots, it doesn't matter which, but you need a bunch of those to plant in that farm. You then need 4 beds for your villagers, and you need a composter to turn your villager inside the farm into a farmer. Then for your holding area, you're going to need a bunch of glass, and exactly how much is going to depend on exactly how long you want your tube running from your breeder to the holding cell is going to be. I would say that around a couple of stacks should be fine. You're going to need 3 signs, at least 4 powered rails, a dispenser with some minecarts to put in it, and some water. And of course you're actually going to also need some water to put in that farm as well. Lastly, for our zombie converting trading hall, we're going to need a bunch of solid blocks to do all our building with. We're going to need a handful of rails, both powered and non-powered, to transport our villagers into it. We need 2 stone buttons and 2, well actually any buttons would do, sorry, doesn't have to be stone buttons, but any 2 buttons and 2 levers. And then per villager that we have in the trading hall, we're going to need 2 powered rails and 1 activator rail, 1 block of redstone, 1 observer, 3 sticky pistons, and then if I go into here, we need 1 bit of string, 2 redstone torches, 4 bits of glass, glowstone or some other way to light up the area, 4 slabs, a trapdoor, and a handful of redstone dust. So remember, everything that I've just said there, that is per villager that we have. Now that you have all your stuff, let's start off by building the villager breeder. So to build it so that everything is going to be on ground level, you're going to start off by coming up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 temporary blocks with a dirt block on the top. You can break all of these now, we don't need them. And this dirt block is going to be the start of our farm. You're going to turn that block into a 3x3 square like this with a gap in the middle. We can come under here and place 1 to fill in that gap underneath like this. So this is going to be the center of our farm. And then from each of these 4 middle bits here, you're going to come out another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Once you've done that, you're going to have a plus that looks like this. And the next thing is to come to the end of each of these and put 1 block on either side like so. And then once you have done this, you're going to do a zigzag backwards and forwards like this until it meets up there, and you're going to do the same for each one of these 4 segments. So that is the outline of the farm, and once you've got that, you can go ahead and just fill in all of these so you just have one solid layer of dirt. With that all laid out, we're going to come to the edge, and at either end of these 3 blocks here, we're going to place a bit of glowstone or whatever lighting block you're using, and we're going to do that again on all 4 of the sides. Next to that glowstone, we're going to place stairs on either side like this, and it's very important that you have them facing in this direction. Don't have them facing out like that, because they need to be able to hold water in. We're going to waterlog these in a moment. Go ahead and grab your trapdoors and then place them one on the side of each of your stairs like so, and make sure they are up, because that also is going to help to keep the water that we're about to place on these stairs in. So I've got all of my stairs and trapdoors down, and there's now a total of 9 water sources I want to place around this farm. I'm going to place one in this central bit here, and then one more in each of the stairs to waterlog them like so. Now this next step is optional, but I like to place a slab in this central water here. Just it makes it really easy to place the composter on top of there without accidentally placing it in the water and destroying that source block. I'm going to go ahead and do that now, and you can see that that composter goes on top rather than in that block here. What I'm also going to do at this point is I'm going to come below here, and as you can see it's kind of dark under here because we've built that platform. So I'm just going to scatter a bunch of lighting around. Now you don't have to do this glowstone, you could just use torches or whatever, but just to make sure that it stays light under there so we're not going to have a bunch of mobs spawning. The next step is to create a boundary for our farm. So you're going to go all the way around the edge, placing down solid blocks on the dirt like so. We're going to leave one edge clear because that's where our breeding villages are going to go, so we need a gap for our farmer to throw them food through. But the rest we're going to cover up all of the dirt like this, and once we've done that we're going to switch to glass, and we're going to build up a 2-high wall of glass around it like this. Now this technically doesn't have to be glass, which I missed one. This doesn't have to be glass, but I think glass is probably the easiest block to use for this, because it means that you don't have to worry about spawn proofing this by placing another slab or anything else or lighting it all up on top. Glass just makes things really handy in that regard. Okay, there we go, we have our boundary, so we can now go about turning this whole area into some nice fertile farmland for ourselves. Okay, there we go, I have turned it all into farmland, and I've planted all of my potatoes. As I said, potatoes or carrots, doesn't matter, those are your 2 options for the crops. For this, either one will do. Now that we've done that, we can go ahead and start building our area just here for our 2 breeding villages to go in. Now the size of this holding area is going to be a 5x5 square, and we want it starting from this open bit here as one of the sides. So we're going to come to either one of our glowstone bits here and come out 4 blocks from there and make it into a square like that. And then we're going to extend this down 2 further, so it is a total of 3 blocks high coming around like so. If we come inside of here now, we're going to come to our second block down, and around the edge of it like this we're going to place our 4 beds with their heads facing into the corners. Coming below this now, we're going to place a temporary block in the middle of any one of these 4 sides so that we can place a fence post in the middle there underneath the beds. And we can break that now, so we have a single fence post that's not connected to anything underneath this gap in the beds. So what this means is that this gap here is going to be too small for the adult villagers that are up there to fall through. But when they breed and they make a little baby villager, that is going to drop through this gap here, and we can then catch it in a water stream and send it off into our system. Coming back up here, we're going to place 2 temporary blocks on top of that fence post there. We're going to place trapdoors around it like so. And we can then get rid of our temporary blocks so that we can then have this area in here where we can stick our villagers, and our 2 villagers inside here are not going to be able to escape from this area. The last thing for this little area is we're going to extend our glass walls out 1 more like that. Make sure you break that block that you place against the dirt there, so we just have this 1 wide gap here coming up to this. And we're going to place a trapdoor across the top there, and what this trapdoor here will do is it will prevent the farmer that we have inside here from actually getting out. He'll be able to come right up to the edge, and he'll be able to throw the potatoes or the carrots at our villagers here so they will breed, but he won't actually be able to leave this area. To make sure that our baby villagers do not go anywhere other than straight down into our water stream when they drop through here, we're going to surround this bit here in half slabs. Make sure they are half slabs, as we do not want our fence post to stick to them. We're then going to come down with glass like this on 3 sides and run a floor of glass out like that, and that is going to be where our tube goes to our holding area. So I've gone ahead here and created a bit of a tube for the baby villagers to get moved along here. It doesn't have to be this same length as mine, it can be as long or as short as you want. I've just gone with 8 blocks because that makes things easy for me in terms of the water here. If you do want to go longer than this, the best way to do that is you stick either a fence or a wall on the end there. I'm just going to build up a little bit more around there to show you guys. And then on the block above that fence, you place a sign and one behind it like that. And then your new water source goes here. I'm not going to do it because this water is going to go everywhere, but that's where your new water source goes. So what's going to happen is the baby villagers is going to come along here. They're going to hit that fence post, which is going to raise them up half a block, which is going to put their head into this bit of water here, and then they can keep on going down there like that. At the end of our pipe, we want to create a system that is going to differentiate our baby villagers from the adult ones. So we're going to come out another block here from the end of our water. Actually, don't put one above that. And we're going to basically make it so that the pipe is now facing up. Inside, we're going to place a sign there at the end of the water and one like that diagonally. And we're going to place a water source block in that bit that we've just created between the 2 signs. And you will see that your water creates a funny little triangle like this. But don't worry, this bit is not actually going to push the baby villagers up into this. They're still going to come straight through and end up stood on this block here. Now, because baby villagers are only 1 block high, they are going to be able to stand in this little area under the water just fine. They're not going to hit that water. But as soon as they grow up and turn into an adult, their head is going to be in this water, which means they're going to float up, and we can then send them across into our adult holding cell. So to finish off this section, we're going to place a second water source on top of the first, so we now have 2 water sources there. We're going to build this pipe up, one more like that, and just on the other side of this block on top here, we're going to place another sign and a water source at the top there. So we have 3 water sources going up, and this one then comes across here and is stopped by the sign. So those adult villagers, floating up here, are going to be pushed across and they're going to drop down here. So this bit right here is where we're going to create our holding cell. I'm going to go ahead and do that very quickly now. Just a simple 1 by 1 by 2 high area is all that we need for this. And there we go. That is that holding cell done. So those villagers, they will float across here and they will drop down in here, and you will have all your adult villagers stood in this area just here. I'm also going to go ahead and put a top on this thing just to make absolutely doubly sure that no villagers can accidentally end up getting out of it. Now, to actually get our villagers out of this thing, we're going to rig up an interesting little system of powered rails. So we're going to come underneath this glass block right here. This is the block that the villagers are going to be stood on. We're going to come down 2 so that we have a solid block with a gap and then that glass block that they are stood on. Now you can do this in any orientation. I'm going to do it running from here and continuing that way just so I have this progression from here to over there. But like I say, it doesn't matter. Whatever direction suits you best. You could also do this running out of either side of this here. We're going to make this into 2 blocks like that, and then 2 more blocks, one up like that, so they kind of meet at this corner where this glass block is. We're going to run powered rails all the way along there, and you will see that this one should become a sloped one going up that, even though we have this glass block here. Now we're going to temporarily break this one because we want to place a powered rail inside of our holding cell there, and you will see that this has now changed so that this one is sloping up there, this one is still sloping up towards that. We can now break that rail that we put in there and replace our glass block. So what's going to happen is when a minecart is dispensed onto this rail here, it's going to come up here, it's going to transfer onto this rail, and in the process it is going to pick up one villager from in here, and then they're going to continue this way into our trading hall. So it's a really neat little system of picking up villagers from a completely enclosed space. Now we want these rails to be powered, so we're going to place a redstone torch right there underneath that. So that's going to power both this one and this section just with that one redstone torch. Then on either side of this lower track right here, we're going to place a solid block, and we're going to come around and we're going to place our dispenser and make sure it is a dispenser, not a dropper, facing onto the track here, and we're going to throw a bunch of minecarts in there so that whenever we activate this dispenser, it's going to spit the minecart onto this rail and it's going to shoot up and it's going to collect our villager for us. Now that there is the villager breeder section of this tutorial all done. So we can go ahead and put our villagers into here. So we're going to put one villager into our farm here, and he should pick up this block in a second and become a farmer. There he goes. And actually I've just realized that I want to have a light block on top of that composter as well. And then we have, come here, and we're going to put 2 villagers inside of here. Now obviously I know that capturing villagers in minecarts and putting them into systems like this is a little bit of a pain in survival, but the beauty of this system is that if you're building this, you basically only ever need to capture 3 villagers in your whole survival world, because once you capture those 3 villagers, you can use them to set up this system, and then every other villager that you are ever going to need is going to be coming out of here, and you can just pick them up straight into a minecart and send them off wherever using this collection system here. So it's a really, really neat, really useful system for dealing with villagers in your survival worlds. Now these guys may take a little bit of time to get going. You can always speed up the process by throwing them a bunch of potatoes yourself. Obviously it'll take a bit of time for this farm on his own to fill them up enough, but once this thing is going, I think it produces about 9-ish villagers an hour, so it's pretty good rates. And if you wanted something that was even faster than that, maybe you had some sort of big project where you wanted to build a massive trading hall and fill it up really fast, you could always just build multiple versions of this, so you would be getting villagers even faster then. Now that that is up and running and all completed, we want to drop our villagers who are going to be coming off of this rail here into the room that we're going to use to give them some sort of job. So we're going to come out 2 from that there. This, incidentally, you don't have to do this right next to here. You can do it as far away as you want. I'm just going to do it right next to it because I don't need to be moving my villagers anywhere else. But you may want to have built your trading hall elsewhere, in which case you can just run this track off to wherever that is and then drop them down into the room as I'm about to show you. So anyway, you're going to have a gap there with a block there. You're going to put a block on top of it like that, and underneath you're going to put a glass block. So this glass block should be at head level, and it has to be a glass block because when the villagers drop down here, they're going to be sat on a rail just here for you to give them their job, and then when you send them off into the villager trading hall, the head is going to actually pass through this block here. So we're going to make it a glass block just so we don't accidentally give them any kind of suffocation damage. It wouldn't kill them, but we still want to avoid any damage to our villagers that we can. At the bottom of this little drop you've created for them, you're going to place a powered rail. You're going to place a normal rail underneath the glass block, and then you're going to place another powered rail on the other side of it like that. And now what we want to do is we're going to build up a bit of a room. It can be any size. I'm going to go quite a small one just because it doesn't really need to be particularly big. And then I will show you that once I'm done. Okay, so I finished building that room now, and as you can see, it is just a very small room, but there is a fair amount actually going on in here. So I will do my best and try and explain everything that I have done. So starting off by our doorway here, you can see I have a lever here, and underneath that there's a bit of redstone, which is going to power this sticky piston. So when I push that, that is going to push the block there up. It's going to close off this, so that is not possible now to walk through that doorway, and when I pull it again, it's going to go down. The reason for that is when our villager drops down here and he's going to be sat here in his minecart, we do not want him to be able to pathfind his way out of this room, because if he does, he might be able to pathfind to some of the workstations that are going to be over there in our trading hall, which means that could be interfering with whatever job we're trying to give him with this one, and we don't want any of that happening. So when you come in here, you're just going to put that lever, make sure that comes up and it's closed off to avoid any pathfinding shenanigans from our villager. Then of course we have our workstation. Now this is not necessarily going to be a lectern for you, it's just whatever workstation is the one for whatever profession you want this villager to get given. I'm just using a lectern here as an example. So whenever that villager drops down and he's going to be sat just here in his minecart, we're going to throw down our workstation, he's going to get given a job, and then we can check out his trades, make sure we like them. If we don't, just break that, wait for him to lose the job, and then place it down again and just repeat that until he has whatever you want. So say if we were trying to get mending on this, just break, check, break, check, break, check, and so on. And then once we're happy with that, we can send him off into the system. Now, just something to bear in note in case you're not aware of this, whenever villagers are taking their trades, they can only get a new trade or lose their current profession between certain times of the day when they are working, and those times are between 2,000 and 9,000 ticks, which you can roughly estimate from looking at a clock in your inventory. So I've currently got the time set to 2,000, which is at a roughly 45-degree angle for the sun in the clock there, and if I go ahead and set the time to 9,000 now, there we can see that the clock has moved and it's now roughly, maybe slightly less than a 45-degree angle out on the other side. So those are the 2 points of the clock that you will be able to change their trades for, and if you don't get the right trade between those 2 times, then you're just going to have to wait until the next day to try it again. Then we have our 2 buttons on the wall here. So this first one here, the one nearer to the door, let me just close that actually. If we press that, our minecart's going to come along, our villager's going to drop down, and he's going to take that profession that we have there. So if I run out of this place now, you can see that behind this button we have some redstone running into a solid block beneath our dispenser. That could also just be running directly into this dispenser, doesn't matter. One thing to note, if I just come to the other side so you can see a bit better, this block right here at the end of our track does have to be a solid block. This one cannot be glass, because if this is glass, then a glass block will not cause the minecart coming out of here to get pushed along. So if that's glass, then it'll just come and sit here and it won't go and it won't pick up the villager. So make sure that is a solid block at the end of your minecart rail. This other button is for whenever we've decided that we like the trade. So let's just say that we like those trades that the villager has there. I'm going to push that button and he's going to shoot off into the system. Obviously he didn't that time because there's no more rails there for him to go on, but you press that button, it powers that, and he shoots off and he'll go into our system. Now we get to the point where we're going to build our villager trading hall and zombie conversion system. So the first thing you're going to want to do is bring your track out of your job selection room here and run it up like this so that the track is 3 blocks above the ground. So you have these blocks that it's on and then 2 blocks clear underneath. And this incidentally is the reason why we have our normal rail there, just to block off this bit of rail which is going to be powered from the bit of rail that our villager sits on in there, just to make sure that that only gets powered when we want it to be. Incidentally, you don't have to power this with a torch here like I've done. It really doesn't matter, just power this however you want. That's just how I've chosen to do it here. Once I've got this all set up, the first thing I'm going to do is mark out where I'm going to be dropping my villagers off into their slots in the trading hall with the activator rails that are going to be doing that. So I'm going to place my first activator rail here, and then on every other block I'm going to place another one. Now this is not something you have to do all at once. I would actually probably recommend, especially if this is your first trading hall, only doing a few to begin with. Get those villagers in and up and running, and then you can just expand this indefinitely as you need to. Once I've got my activator rails placed down, I'm going to go along and I'm going to stick a powered rail in between each of them like that. Now we'll come back to powering all of these in a little bit, but first we're going to build up our first villager trading slot. So to start off with, we're going to come underneath this very first activator rail here, directly underneath it, and we're going to place down our workstation for whatever we want our first villager to have. And make sure, remember, that you know whichever one you're going to be putting it into, you put the same workstation in there when you're deciding your villager trades. Next, we're going to put a lever down in front of that block, and behind it we're going to dig down to put a sticky piston facing up with a trapdoor on top. We're going to dig down and we're going to put some redstone dust running from underneath this lever here into that piston, so that when we pull the lever, that piston is going to push that trapdoor up and down, and this is where our villager is going to be standing. Now we're going to make sure that that piston is in the up position so that the lever is powered, and on either side of it we're going to place slabs like so, so that you have a slab, a gap, and then another slab. The reason we use slabs here, we could obviously just keep the villager in place using solid blocks, but with slabs like this is when the villagers are stood here, they can actually see each other, the villager on either side, and they can gossip with that villager, which means that as you're turning people into zombies and curing those zombies, these villagers are going to gossip with each other. They're going to tell the other villagers that you are the sort of person who comes along and cures zombie villagers. You're a really great person, and that means they're going to give you all even cheaper trades. At this point we can also come behind this bit where the villagers are going to be standing, and in that block behind it we're going to dig one deep trench like that, and this is where the zombie is going to be going. Behind that trench we're going to build up a wall that is 2 blocks high and is the full length of our trading hall, and it's not exactly necessary, but I would recommend placing a decent amount of lighting blocks in that wall, just to make sure that you're not going to get anything spawning in here other than that one zombie that you're going to lure down here and trap in here later on. I've actually just gone ahead and moved all of those blocks down to the bottom of those 2 blocks rather than the top, because the next stage is to come along the top here with solid blocks and place a row of solid blocks along the top like that. That's going to serve 2 purposes. Partly it's going to keep your villagers inside here. They're not going to try and escape into this trench that you've built. And it also is going to protect your zombie in here from the sunlight that would otherwise set him on fire. Coming back to our villager trading slot, we're going to come up to the top here, and then either side of where this activator rail is, we're going to place a solid block like that, and then in line with where it is, we're going to place a slab like so. We're then going to put a bit of string on top of that slab. We're going to have an observer facing into the string, and then on top of the observer we're going to have a piston facing towards the track like that, and then on the block below and one behind we're also going to have another sticky piston facing in towards the track like so. On top of this sticky piston we want 2 solid blocks like that, and bring it out 2 on top like so, and then behind it come out 2 and up 1 like that. Now inside that little gap there you want a repeater set to a 2 tick delay, and then you want redstone dust running all the way up the top like that. Last of all, on top of the activator rail you want a redstone block to power it, and then on either side of that slab with the string you want to come up 2 blocks of glass and go across the top there as well. So the way all this works is the villager is going to come up here in his minecart, he's going to hit this activator rail, and the activator rail is going to spit him off onto the block on the right, which is going to be this block here with the string. And because we've surrounded that in glass, that is the only block he's possibly going to be able to go on, so this makes this very precise. When our villager lands on that block with the string is going to cause a block update which fires the observer, which is then going to fire these 2 pistons. Now the reason we have this observer here to slow this thing down slightly is if you don't have that and you just put the block with a bit of redstone to fire these 2. The pulse from the observer is so fast that these 2 fire so fast and briefly that they don't actually pull the block back. So by having that there, it slows it down just enough that we're going to make sure that it definitely pulls this block back and it pulls this block back, and our villager is going to drop through and this is no longer going to be powered. Now I've replicated that system a couple more times so we can fit a couple more villagers in this thing, and what we can do now is we can go along here and we can stick redstone torches here to power these powered rails to make sure that the minecart gets all the way along here. Now this is very nearly ready to start accepting villagers, but before you start putting any villagers into this thing you should get your zombie down here. So if you're in survival you'll obviously need to do this at night by getting a zombie to follow you, and I think the best way to do it is knock out both of these blocks at the end, get the zombie to follow you in from one end, run down to the other, and then just before the zombie reaches this bit, block that off and run down to the other end and block that off like that, and then he will be stuck in there. Also don't forget to either name your zombie or find a zombie that is carrying an item to trap down here so that he won't despawn. So I'm just going to quickly create a name tag here and we're going to call him Larry the zombie. There we go. Right, there you go, Larry the zombie. Now you won't despawn. Now we're ready to actually give this thing a test. So I'm going to come into my room here, I'm going to make sure that is closed, and I'm going to press my button to send a villager over to me. He is going to take the librarian profession. We're going to have a look in here. We'll just pretend that these are trades that we like. So what you need to do now before you send him off into the system is you need to trade with him to lock in these trades so that these don't change at all. So make sure you have plenty of emeralds when you come to do this. I'll give myself some quickly now. Okay, I've got plenty of emeralds now, so I'll just do one quick trade with him. He is now traded with, his trades locked in, and I can send him into the system. So watch him go, there you go, he drops onto that, drops down, and if we go and take a look now, there we go, he is now stood there, he still has those same trades, and it is all good. There we go, I've now put a total of 3 villagers in here from that room there, and as you can see if I look up here, we have our 3 redstone blocks which have been pulled back so our activator rails are no longer powered. So you can also see we have got ourselves a little bit of a tower of minecarts developing over here at the end. So one thing I would recommend doing is looping this track back around from the end of your trading hall to over here, and you run that track directly into a cactus with a hopper, so the minecart runs into the cactus, breaks, the hopper catches it and deposits it back into our dispenser. Now we have a bit of a trading hall going for us, But if we take a look at those guys' trades, these are just their default trades, and to be honest, I think 9 emeralds is a little bit steep for one bookshelf. So we want to get these trades to become a bit cheaper for us. So that is where our friend Larry comes in. If you pull the lever, he's going to get dropped down there. He's not going to be able to get out, he's just going to be down, and the zombie is going to go and he's going to start attacking him. And once this guy gets killed by the zombie, there we go, he becomes a zombie villager. And what we can do now, we want to put Splash Potion of Weakness. We're going to throw our Splash Potion of Weakness directly at our poor zombie villager there. And we're going to take a golden apple as well. And we're going to feed it to our zombie villager. And eventually he is going to turn back into a librarian. There we go, he has turned back into a villager. If you take a look, his trades have now become much cheaper. He is only now charging us 3 emeralds for the bookshelf, and he will now give us an emerald for just 18 paper as opposed to 24 paper as it was before. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I've shown you how to make a villager breeder, and then how to take your villagers from that breeder, give them jobs, and deposit them into a villager trading system complete with zombie conversion. I will of course put a world download in the description so you can take a look at any of these 3 parts in as much detail as you would like. But guys, that is all I've got for you for now. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like and consider subscribing so you don't miss any more future videos from me. I've been Matt, and until next time, I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.